A sneak peek at what's coming up next.
Ever heard of the still face study? It's a really hard line of studies because it looks at the trauma responses of children where their parents are actively disengaging from them in infancy. However, what we see is that there is a really high cortisol level that comes with that closing off. All of these show that there are distress symptoms that those children exhibit when they are not being engaged with. And that autistic child still shows the same distress symptoms that you would see with neurotypical kids without that parent engaging.
I think you should do the rest of the interview just as Hank Hill.
Bobby, are you on the spectrum? Peggy, I think Bobby is on the spectrum. I told you not to get him a dang vaccine.
If you've been told so long that you can keep on performing in this way and you'll feel that way, and we have all sorts of media that does tell us this, tells queer people this, that if you just keep on trying, you can conform to heteronormativity. Right. Sorry, I rolled my eyes there.
No, that's all right. Roll your eyes.
Because one of those things, it's like I have a really hard time conceptualizing the way that people expect others to just know how they feel valued and worth.
Yeah.
And I have a really hard time with that with parents in particular, expecting their kids to just know.
Yeah. Just to know at what point to say certain things or do certain things a certain way, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're recording now, and whenever you're ready.
Welcome to another episode of On the Spectrum podcast. My name is Nick.
And I'm Sven from the Fjord.
Twice for Sven, huh? Twice for Sven. All right. So me and Steve do not presume to be experts of anything whatsoever. We're just two human beings living on a spectrum and trying to figure out for ourselves what that means and also what it means for anybody else. Yeah. And we've got somebody we're interviewing today. Someone I met on the Ticker Talker doing a live, if I remember correctly. We were doing a live together. And this human being had some interesting stuff to say, as well as has been rocking and correct me if I'm wrong, but rocking the activism world for autistic folk for quite a few years now. Everybody, this is Oswin Latimer.
Hello. Yes. I've been doing this for way too long. Nobody should ever do neurodiversity activism as long as I have. It is not a good idea. But I've been doing it since 2009.
Okay.
I started a blog way back when.
Mm-hmm.
Very quickly transitioned over into running a ASCN chapter here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which then very quickly turned into a career in DC, working at ASCN as the director of community engagement. Mm-hmm. And then I fell apart in spectacular fashion, as happens in DC. It's not an unusual thing for that to happen working in DC. Came back and a couple of years after, started my own organization, Foundations for Divergent Minds. We do...
Wait, what's the name of it again?
Foundations for Divergent Minds.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was said clearly. That's all. Just making sure.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Yes. We do systems change work. We started out doing it in education and therapy, but have moved into healthcare and like domestic violence and sexual and reproductive health work. It kind of all intersects in ways that people don't think about, but clearly they all intersect in fairly similar ways.
Well, yeah, pretty much everything intersects, doesn't it? Like everything in every way.
Yes.
There's some way everything intersects. Well, I just mean it because generally when people talk about any one of those things, it's very isolated in the conversation, right?
Yeah, that's not me.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like most people talk about it that way, and a lot of organizations, especially like nonprofits, are set up in that narrow scope, right? And you're talking about working with all of these things together because they all interplay.
They do. Like I got my start in policy work, but once you do policy work, you can see where the holes are on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And so we try to like start filling the ones that are the most desperate.
Okay.
Because if you look at education of autistic and neurodivergent kids,
Yeah.
it's really not where we want it to be. We know
Right.
that.
Right.
Healthcare is not where we want it to be, especially within intersectional communities,
Mhm.
within BIPOC communities and queer communities, especially, which has a high co-occurrence with neurodivergence. And then when we started looking at the domestic violence work, that came out of like the fact that we have those gender disparities, we have a much higher rate of domestic violence and intimate partner violence than general population. Like autistic women report like 80% sexual violence against them. So like it's really high. So we're going into the places that are the most scary.
Okay. That is definitely one way to word that. Yeah. The places that are scary.
I was gonna ask you like what are the potential reasons for that, but I think some of them are probably obvious. But.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it is honestly mortality rate is where which I should probably say that again, and y'all record it with me not saying it that way.
What?
Sorry,
What?
we should, if you can cut that and
Okay.
this next thing.
The
Sorry.
mortality rate thing? Cut that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm gonna go with quality of life instead.
All right.
So,
Wait, what's wrong with saying the other one? No, don't explain it because we'd have to cut more of it.
Yeah. Do you want me to not? We can just
No.
have this as a whole thing where that can stay, and I'm okay as long as we cut out the parts where I'm saying cut it out.
No.
Yeah, it's fine.
We can leave that part out, and we'll just not continue with that because I had questions about it, but I don't need to.
No, honestly, it's not a better discussion point, and since we don't have a trajectory for this conversation, I'm okay with going whatever because
good.
I think like
too.
sometimes when people have normal conversations, there's you may not phrase things perfectly, or you may say something that you may have said differently in hindsight, but that's just the way human beings communicate with each other.
It's
true.
Just the way human beings do
I
it.
also run an organization and do policy work, and so there's also that aspect, and so I want to make sure that I'm not turning people off to the discussion because I'm going into heavy topics within the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, so let me ask you a question about that because you do policy work. So you're talking with, people who have certain, professional guidelines, certain ways of talking and being. How do you navigate those conversations? I mean, you seem to be a very genuine, authentic kind of person who's very upfront and honest. How do you navigate those conversations with people who have this rigid kind of expectation about how people should behave?
So policy work isn't like that at all.
Oh, because I'm thinking like 9 senators sitting around a table and you just being like, you need to listen to me.
No,
okay.
Because what you're talking about with policy work is not within the structure of passing laws. It's once laws have passed and you're inserting yourself into the regulation process. And so those people want to hear a variety of standpoints.
Oh.
And so I can be a lot more direct in those spaces than I can publicly.
Oh, okay. Well, I have no idea how it works. I like out of the two of me and Steve, I'm the idiot. So yeah, I'm the one sitting here trying to learn some jazz because Steve knows a bunch of things and I'm just like pretty.
Because they don't want you to flower it up because flowering it up typically takes a whole lot more time. If you just tell them what's happening.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, let's figure out a way around that.
Right. Just in my conception of things, I can only imagine that like having that conversation or certain similar ones. I guess in a public setting, it's a lot harder to do because you got to be far more aware of all the different new terms and the more positive based terminology or stuff like that. And that's going to be hard to juggle. Like, for me, I have a hard time not swearing. Okay. So, yeah.
So I can get where you're coming with that from, but you'll have to first recognize that I already think in a completely different mindset than most of those people anyways. Because I'm coming from a very, very strong neurodiversity mindset, that paradigm that most people, even within the autistic community, are not coming from.
Okay.
Because everyone has had this, their experience of autism is shaped by the way that autism is currently talked about.
Relatively speaking, yeah.
okay, but I've been doing this for 15 years. Where's my language at? It's not there anymore. It's not even conceptualizing in that framework anymore because I can't, because it's not accurate.
It's kind of like how,
Okay.
if I understand you correctly, it's kind of like how a lot of people who, when they first start openly speaking about their autism, we still have a lot of like internalized ableism and things like that. So we're not thinking about it in the way that maybe we should, or we could reframe the way we look at things, but we're still looking at it some ways. Like we're still holding ourselves to certain standards that maybe are harder or more difficult for us to meet. And we're still looking at things from a more of a neurotypical standpoint.
Yes, and that has direct relations to the fact that we come at this from a medical model standpoint, because the only way that we have the only way that we can recognize ourselves is within diagnostic criteria,
Right.
which requires us to conceptualize our behaviors within that framework.
Yes.
We have to. It's just required
Right.
to be able to get to the diagnosis process, even the self-diagnosis process.
Yeah.
All of that imposter syndrome people get
Mhm.
is directly related to the fact that we have to conceptualize ourselves within that framework.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know as much about the DSM as you, but because it's
Probably knows more.
well, I guess both of you, but because I don't know, but the DSM, like it's considered it's a developmental disorder, which is why the focus is mainly on children. And then that's also part of the reason why it's harder for adults. Like if you weren't diagnosed as a kid, it's one of the reasons it's harder is because it's considered a developmental thing. And if you're older, no one cares, or no one, I mean, you know, figuratively, no one really cares as much about developmental stuff when it comes to somebody who's already an adult.
Right. Because some people have tendency to say, well, you're an adult now, figure it out. And that's not how it works.
Okay, so I come from a completely different line of communities as most people within the autistic community. And so we have to start from there because, again, I went very quickly. A year after I was diagnosed, started at ASAN chapter. A year after that, I started working for ASAN National. And the year after that, I moved to DC.
Okay.
So I have only had disability rights and disability justice people around me.
Ah, okay.
That completely changes the framework that I'm coming from than most people.
Yeah.
You cannot, like it is a completely different framework.
Because you're like, you're inundated with it. Like you've been surrounded by it for so long.
Especially from that perspective. Yeah.
Right. And so there's nothing I can do to change the fact that everyone else is coming from where they are and where I am. But what I can say is that the people that I've always been around who are doing the work in DC, that are doing policy work, who are doing any sort of advocacy around all these things, recognizes that there is this huge drop off, and it's because we don't have a clear understanding of what these things can look like once we've brought in adaptive behaviors.
Okay.
Any sort of adaptive behavior, maladaptive or pro-social adaptive behaviors.
Right.
Sorry, I'm going to use clinical terms right now.
No, go for it.
I don't have a better phrasing.
Yeah. Do what you got to do. I'll translate if I need to. Yeah. Maladaptive, rigid. Yeah.
Okay.
Rigid, like shit that don't work for you. And then pro-social would be like things that are more constructive for you.
Sounds like CBT stuff.
Yeah, relatively.
Kinda.
It's in the realm. It's in the realm. Yeah. It's in that sphere.
It is, but we're not talking about things that we are consciously learning.
Right.
We're talking about things that we unconsciously learn through our environments. And so, like, if you have a parent that is really, really in tune to you, you can end up with some really pro-social adaptive behaviors, even as autistic persons.
Yeah.
Which is how you get the unmasked autistic people that are high achieving.
Well, yeah, because they had enough support. Yeah, they had a bunch of support. Yeah.
And so, like, so I'm just going to say any adaptive behavior makes it harder to tell whether or not you're autistic, because even in those early childhood things, many of the things that we're looking for are signs of distress.
Yes.
And so if you come up with adaptive behaviors that mitigate those signs of distress, that's going to make it harder to identify you as an adult.
Yeah, very much so.
Whether they're maladaptive or pro-social.
Right.
So it sounds like
either one.
This is for the layman over here. It sounds like what you're talking about is working with someone's autism instead of working against it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like it sounds like what you're saying is finding ways to deal with some of the issues that might arise if you're a parent and you're dealing with an autistic child. But if you have a parent who is finding, for lack of a better term, like positive ways to work with the person, how they are, rather than trying to approach it from forcing them into a rigid, like neurotypical box and making them act a certain way.
Instead of forcing them to not scream or stim, instead of encouraging them to be able to express themselves.
Okay. I get it, I think.
So do you want to know some really cool research behind this? Because
Sure.
I also keep up with all of that.
Sure, if you'd like to tell us.
So there's this study that was done, and it looked, the framing of it was terrible. It is a terrible framing. But what they did was took at risk of becoming or of being diagnosed as autistic children.
What the hell does that mean?
Okay. It means that they had an older sibling that was autistic.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it just means they have a higher risk of
I know, it
becoming.
just phrased that way. It sounds weird. Like, what do you mean?
Well,
you either are or you aren't. What does that mean?
But they don't,
risk.
Yeah, but they don't mean at risk like in a negative way. They just mean a higher probability.
So it sounds weird.
Yeah, okay.
It does. It does.
Well, yeah.
I mean, there's a reason I'm using quotations around it, because it's like we're talking about siblings of autistic kids.
Yeah.
I think, didn't you share me this this study?
Not this one.
I thought you shared me something like this when we did the autism month thing.
When
in
we
April.
were talking about the twin studies and stuff.
I think there was a study about something like this that I read some statistic about, like did some study about like kids, like if they're at higher risk if the sibling. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I passed you a couple. Yeah. So anyway,
there's a lot of studies that look at risk to figure out how much at risk a sibling is of developing autism.
Right. Yeah. How likely the other sibling is to get it or have it.
Okay, so this study took that population and then introduced an intervention. The intervention was they recorded the parent and the child playing together, and then they pulled the parent aside and showed them where they were supposed to interact with the child, where the child was interacting with them. And how they could interact in those moments. Went back out, played some more, goes back in, continues to point out, and the parents end up learning how to adapt to that child.
Yeah.
By the age of 3, the drop off of diagnosis was significant enough for them to publish a study.
Is this like, so because I'm trying to conceptualize this here, would it be things like, let's say a small autistic child is more likely to get very focused and fixated on objects and things rather than people or interacting with their parents, right? So one thing it sounds like, because I'm just trying to figure this out, it would be maybe the parent would get involved with the kid, but trying to communicate with them and like, no,
we got a head shaky.
No, not at all.
Okay.
So this is the thing, that this is a perception that this is what the child is, what's happening. But what we can say, or what that study really shows, is that there were probably interludes that the child was exhibiting that the parent wasn't seeing.
Right. The parent wasn't catching on to it. Yeah. And
so they then caught on to it, or being shown it, was able to catch on to it. And that reduced the rate of diagnosis by age 3. However, it did not stop the restrictive interest, which is, I think, the most interesting part.
Yeah. I mean,
all we're showing is a reduction in stress symptoms, I believe.
Right. Which I think everybody can agree, like lowering the stress on your kid and making them feel more supported is a good thing. For any kid, but especially for an autistic kid.
So what you're saying is, by intervening with the parents and kind of pointing certain things out to them, it reduced the amount of stress on the child. So therefore you would see less outward quote unquote symptoms or things that people would typically associate with autism, like having meltdowns or like some of that type of stuff is what you're saying. Okay.
Probably less stimming too, relatively speaking. And I would say, and I'm willing to wager that those parents actually became better parents for their autistic kid in the process, because they're being shown things in particular in which to help their kid for or with.
And the whole point of that study was to show that improving attachment would reduce autism.
Oh, okay. Okay, so their base premise.
We still have the restrictive interest. We still have the restrictive interest.
Yeah.
So we're not getting rid of autism.
Yeah.
We're just getting rid of the distress.
Sounds like you're causing less trauma to the child.
Well, relatively speaking,
that part,
I mean, so their base premise is dumb, but their outcome seemed like it gave a level of benefit, and that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Like I don't never read research for what their conclusions are. Read research for what they show, and like see if you can line it up to your experience.
Okay. All right.
Because that will tell you more about the study than anything that they come to conclusions.
Yeah, because they're looking at it from, like you said before, like the medical model. It's
Well,
like
yeah.
they're looking for, because it's like pathologized. It's like these are certain symptoms, and we're reducing these quote unquote symptoms of autism,
Right.
which is the outbursts or the meltdowns, all that
Yeah.
stuff. But those things are being caused by trauma or stress that it's that the child's reacting to,
Right.
and so you're mitigating that. So you're seeing less of those, whatever you want to call it, those flags.
Symptoms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how they look at it. I'm saying from their perspective,
Right.
when they're
The
looking at
red
coming at it.
flags
yeah.
are trauma symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about this kind of research, but it's interesting. I'm trying to follow the path with you.
I will say that what I'm talking about is taking other research, and I'm combining a lot of areas of research together to make these to frame what I'm saying.
What is the most surprising thing that you've read in a study? Like something that really surprised you? I'm just curious.
That peanut butter is loved by all
How about
people unless they
autism?
have an allergy for it. I don't know. Like,
Nobody hates peanut butter. Just some people can't eat it.
yeah,
That's all.
yeah, that's exactly right.
So this is an old study, and it's one of my favorites to bring up, and it's one of the ones that is like, oh wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
But we have to conceptualize it with everything else I've learned, and you'll be able to do that because I can explain it to you. So have you ever heard of the still face studies?
I have not.
Okay, still face studies look at early childhood trauma responses in children who are denied parental access.
Okay.
And it's a really hard line of studies because it looks at the trauma responses of children where their parents are actively disengaging from them in early childhood, in infancy, like they do these studies at the 6-month-olds.
Okay.
They're controlled environments, and so we can hope that these kids react different or can grow to learn react differently. However, what we see is that there is a really high cortisol level that comes with that closing off.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All of these show that there are distress symptoms that those children exhibit when they are not being engaged with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, they took 18 to 24-month-old autistic children, non-speaking, were generally disengaged from their environment. And they put an adult into that room, and they sat that adult down, and that adult parallel played with that autistic child.
Okay.
Then they did it a second round. And that second round, that person was told to disengage, not interact with the child. And that autistic child still showed the same distress symptoms that you would see with neurotypical kids without that parent engaging.
Yeah.
Now,
see, I wouldn't expect any different.
Well, when you consider all the other research that I had read before I read that study,
Okay.
before the awareness that y'all have of neurodiversity now existed, because all of this was before all of the online awakening of it. We were online, yes, but we were not part of the online awakening that most of y'all are.
Okay.
So the narrative was that we were disengaged from other people. And that was what all of the studies were showing.
Yeah.
But this old study from 2003.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the original research said that the kids would disengage too, and they were disinterested in being socialized.
And they would institutionalize a lot of the kids because the parents felt like there was no connection and nothing going on, and they couldn't get through to them, so they institutionalized them, not realizing that the child may actually be hurt by being taken out of the environment and put into this institution, and not being able to connect with the parents.
Yeah,
right. So this study in the early 2000s, the early aughts, because I love saying aughts.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite words. Sorry, it's lovely on the math. So yeah, that study from then showed that autistic children, even at 18 to 24 months, wanted to engage with the adults in the room, but
Right.
because they were not showing any overtures in that first round,
Mm-hmm.
the disengagement, they still showed this distress. And I think it's one of those most impactful things because, like, okay, we have solid evidence across the lifespan because autistic teens and autistic adults have been saying in research for years that they want to be friends with other people, they want to engage with other people.
Right.
Not being able to do it is not the same thing as not wanting to do it.
Right. They're just not playing by the same rules as the people who are not.
But we can see that as early as 18 to 24 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just hugely impactful for like parents engaging with their kids, even if they don't think their kids are engaging with them.
Well, I can say anecdotally with my own son, who's on the spectrum, like he always wanted to engage with other kids his entire life. He always wanted to engage with me and his mother his whole life. And when he gets disinterested is only when he gets real hyper fixated on something. Like if he's really into Minecraft that day, and it, ebbs and flows. He always likes it, but there are certain days where he's a little bit more. On those days, it's really hard to get him interested or want to do anything with anybody outside of playing that. But then there are other days where he's more than fine. He comes downstairs and goes, "Hey, what are we doing today?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, but let me also put in context. He's 17 now. So he's a teenager.
19, 20-year-old.
Yeah, like he's a teenager. So of course he's going to seem a little disinterested in wanting to hang out with his, brother or with me. But there are times where he just comes over and goes, thanks. And I'll go, "For what?" And he goes, "You'll do something." And I was like, "What does that mean?" "I'll do something." And then he'll just be like, "At some point, you'll do something really good for me. And I'm just letting you know, thank you, because I might not say it at the time." And I was like, "I love the awareness, dude. You're welcome."
Yeah, I wouldn't have done that at his age. So
No, neither would I. I mean, my mother still tells me stories about how unappreciative I was of so many things. And I was like, "What are you talking about? I always appreciated what you did for me. And I told you that." "No, you didn't. You never once thanked me for blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Yeah, I did, because I accepted it and I moved forward with it. And then I bragged about it." And she was like, "Well, you didn't say I appreciate it." And I was like, "Because that's not my way." Like, you know what I mean?
Sorry, I rolled my eyes there.
No, that's all right. Roll your eyes.
Because one of those things, it's like I have a really hard time conceptualizing the way that people expect others to just know how they feel valued and worth.
Yeah.
And I have a really hard time with that with parents in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Expecting their kids to just know.
Yeah. Just to know at what point to say certain things or do certain things a certain way, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I actually kind of struggle with that. I've got 4 kids. And so I kind of struggle at times with like, am I informing them enough about how the way the world works, but more importantly, helping them express who they are and their way. Like, I don't force my kids to say, "I love you," or to give me a hug or anything like that. If they want to, cool, but they don't have to by any means. Like, show me affection your way. Teach me what affection means to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always come about it that way.
My oldest is 20 now.
Mhm.
And like, he'll come, the way that he does it is after appointments, after we've like worked with somebody else, or he's gone into a room. Because at this point I don't go in with him because I'm trying to be purposeful and like helping him learn to be himself and advocate for himself.
Yep.
And so like he'll come back out and just say, "Thank you for everything you've done, because I'm lucky to have you as a parent." I'm like,
yeah.
That's kind of weird, but also thank you.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Absolutely.
What?
Nothing.
I don't have any kids, so I'm just.
No, you don't have kids, but you were a kid of somebody.
Yes.
Actually,
yes,
technically, you still are.
I was a kid of somebody.
Yeah,
You are now an adult of somebody.
I'm a child. I'm a child of the universe now.
Nah, if you knew him well enough, you wouldn't be able to call him an adult. He's a kid of somebody.
I mean, if you're over 18, none of us are adults. We're all pretending. It's fine.
Yep, that's exactly right.
I thought it would feel different once I get to adulthood, and I just realized, no, still feels the same.
Yeah, I just know more shit now. Like,
this is a really interesting thing that I read that basically says that millennials and Gen Z do not have the traditional markers of adulthood because of the way that everything works now, that we don't have a clear demarcation to be able to identify adulthood by.
That's what you get for being younger. Right there. That's what you get.
All right.
So you're a millennial, right?
I'm an elder millennial.
Yeah, you're an elder millennial, and I'm Gen X.
What do we count as elder millennial? Because I don't have a concept.
So elder millennial would be, I think it's 85 to 1985 is the year. I'm 86, so 85 I think is like the kind of cutoff for a millennial.
82. I'm 82, so and I'm a millennial. 81 is also millennials.
I'm
so
80.
Like,
I'm 80. I'm literally the last year of Gen X.
Gen X. Yeah.
Yep. I am very much the last year of Gen X.
I'm like the oldest of millennials.
Yeah.
And I recognize this.
I thought the cutoff was like mid 80s, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, it depends. So I
thought it was like 85 to like 96 was millennial.
So I've seen a scale that said 70 to 80 is Gen X. I saw one that said 75 to 85 was Gen X. And then the weirdest one I saw said 77 to 86 was Gen X. And like, I don't know who to listen to on that.
This is hard science.
I squarely had internet in middle school. I get that I'm a little old for having internet in middle school, but I had internet in middle school. So like I am part of the millennial generation. Like the meme culture is something that I grew up or like high school with. So
I had internet in elementary school when Google first came out. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Well, actually, no, I was in middle school. Middle school when Google first came out.
Did you honestly just say when Google came out?
Yes. When Google, like the website, the search engine first came out, I was in middle school.
I remember the day a buddy of mine said, "Hey, I've got the internet." And I went, "What?" And they were like, "Ooh, I got Prodigy. Come over. Let's go look at it." And we had to listen to the dial-up sounds and wait like 4 or 5 minutes before it finally popped up. And he goes, "Look, we can search for things." And I was like, what do you want to search for? And he was like, "We can look for anything." And I went, like what? Like, I didn't understand the concept, right? Like this place where there's all this information, but of course, neither one of us could come up with a way of, what we wanted to look up. So we went outside to play.
Get junk email and talk to people in chat rooms and AOL.
Like, that's literally what it came down
IRC. I was an IRC person because
I remember IRC.
My dad ran a business creating like computer networks for companies in a small town in Northeast Texas, like super small. And so he got us high-speed internet really early. So like high school, 10th grade, I had ISDN. And so when I got home after school, after doing all my extracurricular stuff, I would get on IRC and just chat all night long and share music. Not even Napster sharing music, just like peer-to-peer.
Oh, yeah. Using hyperlinks, right? Using a hyperlink.
No, like you could do it directly through IRC.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Just directly share files.
Yeah, I remember when you had to use hyperlink and it was just a one-to-one connection. And then when Napster came out and LimeWire and all of that, a buddy of mine had to teach me how torrents worked because it was such a foreign concept to me.
You just admitted to piracy.
Yeah, but like me and that friend, we would use the dial-up internet to send games to each other. What?
Disney's coming after.
I don't think they're coming after us.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But like Doom, the original
Nickelback
Doom.
and tell him you downloaded.
My buddy Jack sent me.
That you couldn't download.
What?
I said I'm going to call Nickelback and say you downloaded their album.
They won't care.
But no, Metallica is the one that comes from my generation.
Yeah, they were.
Lars, right?
Yeah, it was Lars Ulrich. Yeah, the drummer of all people is the one who went after people. They're taking money out of our pockets. I mean, we just got $10 million from the tour, but they're taking pennies away. Shut up, Lars. Anyway, I'm sorry. I remember some of the public speeches he gave about it, and he kept talking about pennies. And like, dude, nobody cares that you're losing pennies on a CD. Okay, go do a tour. You've got enough albums out there. Like, come on. And I noticed how none of the rest of the band was involved in those press conferences.
Hey, you know what?
It was just that semi-bald guy doing
The
it.
free market came up with the solution, which is streaming. So,
Yes,
Because
exactly.
people are pirating, they came up with streaming, and now nobody pirates anymore. I mean, people do, but not many people do it anymore because it's so easy. It's easier to stream than it is to download.
Right. You don't have to. It's free.
Yeah.
You can find brand new songs for free.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
what the hell?
going on TikTok and having my feed give me music to go then on Spotify and add it, it's just lovely. And then I'm not even like going through something that costs money to like find music.
Right.
So
Right. And then you have to worry if the store even carries the CD or not.
right.
Oh, did they sell out? Do I have
Well,
to
it's also
wait a
affected the
week?
way that music is produced because
Yes, it
now
is.
people will release music as singles instead of releasing whole albums. A lot of artists don't even release albums anymore. They just do singles.
Who?
Most of the pop artists out nowadays, they don't release full albums. They just
Really?
release singles. Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Because
I used
because
to
they
like-
release a few singles,
Yeah.
they see how they do. The
Uh-huh.
song does well, they release another single. They just release
Yeah.
them periodically
Oh.
rather than dropping a whole album.
I don't like that because I used to like the whole like theme to an album.
But
Right?
that's a relic of a
I'm-
different time.
Oh, well.
But it isn't because we just had Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, did he put out an album that was all themed in one
I mean,
thing?
all of the drops that they did around him and Drake
Drake.
are definitely going to be like a full album. Also, we
Oh.
had the Eminem drop that was also thematic. That was like a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
So like,
See,
we're still getting thematic releases. We're just not
Yeah.
getting it from the new people as they're building their careers up because they're building their careers up in a different way.
okay. All right.
reflects
So
the time.
probably, yeah. I mean, so probably eventually they'll have a thematic kind of album at some point.
We can hope.
Yeah.
can hope.
Well, I used to really love
Or if you're
them.
Taylor Swift.
Put out
Yeah, that
random
too.
songs.
But she's got like, she's always coming out with albums.
Well, yeah. Well, maybe a little too often. But like, so I'm gonna unfortunately throw myself under the bus. I bought every Meatloaf album since the day I was born, and I loved the heck out of them. Right? They're not the greatest music in the world. Don't get me wrong. It's just the whole album had this story to it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Jim Steinman wrote each song in particular in a certain order on purpose, and I really loved that. Nobody puts that much effort into like plotting out their album. And I gotta tell you, even some movies, like, good God, go back to the 80s and 90s and learn that you have to have a whole thing all the way through, not just some random stuff and eventually the movie's over. Sorry.
Old man yells at
But-
cloud.
Yes, old man yells at cloud. Okay.
Yes,
Yes, I'm
yes.
old man
I-
yelling at cloud.
Back
I
in my
very
day,
much
we
think
had
that's
vinyl
like-
LPs.
Yeah.
I can't conceptualize things as outside of what they are. And right now we are in this medium where everyone's attention span is so much slower that we
Mhm.
can't really expect until there's more regulation on social media for people's minds to get back into that mindset. I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Everything is 30-second sound bites.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this will turn into one. Like
Yes,
all these
yeah.
will turn into one.
Oh yeah, because we will be clipping stuff out of this, and we are going to put it on
Because it's
social
easier
media.
for people to consume it. It's funny, I've had people tell me, like, oh, I really like your podcast, but they just listen to
Yeah,
the clips.
just the clips.
And they're like, oh, it's like, I don't really listen to podcasts because they don't want to listen to an hour or 2 hours. But then they'll say, I'll listen to a minute or a minute and a half clip from your show. And then it always ends too soon. I want to hear more. Well, yeah, that's why you listen to the whole show.
That's where you watch the whole thing. Actually, my coworker several times for like a week was like, "Oh yeah, man, saw another episode. It was really, really good. You make a lot of really good points." I said, "Oh, which episode?" Well, whichever clip you have on TikTok. And I went, "We have a lot of clips on TikTok. Like that's where we
That's a
put the
lot.
clips. So you go watch the episode." Oh no, I can't sit for an hour and listen to people talk.
That's what you do while you're. Well, I listen to podcasts when I'm driving or
Yeah,
going for
so do I.
walks. Things
So do I.
or
Oh
cooking.
no,
I
I
do
have
them all
to
the time.
sit down and listen to a podcast because I can't
Oh, okay.
process it if I'm doing other activities. So
See,
like,
I actually have the exact opposite. It's harder for me to pay attention to a podcast when I'm just sitting and trying to focus on it. I got to do
we
something
we should note that I am an autistic person without ADHD.
else.
Yeah. I'm
Yep,
one of
okay.
those.
There's a drastic difference.
I like to cook. If I'm cooking dinner,
Uh-huh.
I can cook because cooking to me is kind of therapeutic and I
Yeah.
like it, and it's mindless to me.
Right.
Because usually, I just go through the motion, so I can listen to a podcast and I'm paying attention to it, and I'm not really paying attention to cooking because it's like second nature to me.
Yeah.
I'm just doing it.
See,
Yeah.
when I'm playing Civilization, computer game, when I'm playing Civilization, I listen to podcasts then. Yeah. Actually, I will listen to the more boring podcasts that I pay attention to while playing a video game.
Audiobooks? I listened to some audiobooks while doing that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
There was a few autism books I listened to
Yeah.
while I was doing other things.
Oh, there you go. When I was driving to Maine for 5.5 hours to go see.
Although I've been told some of the books that I listened to in audiobook form were
Yeah.
problematic, so I don't know.
Okay,
Which ones? I'm curious now.
yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
I gotta look them up because I don't remember the name
Oswin's
of
probably
them.
going to be happy about that one. You know what? And actually,
Don't worry. I am always going to be able to phrase things in a way that moves things forward and doesn't just
Well,
integrate.
oh no, it's cool. You could shut us down completely and
I
just be like,
took it-
"You're bad people. You read that book,"
Oh,
and we're both going to go,
No,
"All
I
right,
didn't do
cool."
that.
I was trying to understand it from the context. Like I know, like you got to look at things for the context and what they were made. You know,
Right. Well, I mean, when we were talking with Clinton on the previous episode, like we talked about things being problematic in certain ways, and it actually got me thinking. So in between recording these two, it got me thinking about this idea of like maybe we should be aware of things that are problematic and why they actually are, not just listening to people say they are. Right. So if there's a book
I
that's
typically like giving the context on these things because I think it's because we get dogmatic about it if we don't. Instead of thinking about why we have these things and like because it's not about dogma, it's about respect. And so we have to understand that other point of view to understand and respect why it exists.
Right. Like, how did somebody come to that point of view? Yeah, like, because I've heard critiques
in a different key. I think that's one of the ones.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the reaction right there. Okay.
Letters to My Weird Sister.
I've not heard of that one.
It's about somebody who has an autistic sister.
Yeah, I can figure that out by the
title.
But yeah, there was a bunch of them that I had. Yeah. Well, the one I think the in a different key, is that the one that kind of goes into like kind of the early history of autism?
Oh.
I mean, so we have to. Really
it's about Donald Triplett. Yes, that's the one that starts out about talking about Donald Triplett.
Oh, okay.
The one who was first diagnosed in the U.S. or whatever with autism. So it talks about him as an early child, and then it goes on from there.
Yes.
Okay.
There were problematic things in that book that I don't know how to frame in a wording that is okay, but the way that she talks about her son and sexual anyways, that stuff is in there, and that's not okay to be like just divulging that about.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay.
What I found interesting about it was there were certain things that I'd heard about from like the Donald Triplett story and talking about how autism was treated in that time frame. Yeah. That was some of the stuff that the book mentions there were things I hadn't heard of or didn't know about. And about like Donald Triplett being Donald Triplett was institutionalized for a while, right?
I think so.
Yes. And then
have y'all read? I'm assuming y'all have read Neurotribes at least, right?
Nope.
No.
What? No, I have not.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Neurotribes is problematic in a different way, but you should also read that.
Yeah, is that the one that first like said neurodiversity or neurodivergent or something like that?
No.
Okay, then I'm totally wrong.
Steve Silverman's book from 2016, 2015.
Okay.
One of those two. And he was a reporter with Wired, and he had done some early stuff on neurodiversity with journalism stuff then. And so he had a lot of connections within the autistic community, and so went through and looks at it from a historical point of view. I will say it's very, very whitewashed. There is not going to be a person of color in that book, which is problematic because I know way too many people of color, including myself, that have been part of the movement since the beginning.
Yeah, sure. Well, so here's my question on that for the book.
Well, I haven't been from the beginning, but like other.
Yeah. Nope, lost that question. So what were you saying?
Sorry.
No, that's not on you. That's on me. I had like two competing thoughts.
So it looks like it looks at the early history as
Yeah.
well, and I highly recommend it
Uh-huh.
with the awareness that it is whitewashed. With the awareness that
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
whitewashed.
Well, so the person who wrote it from their perspective.
They're more journalistic storytelling perspective. So
Okay.
like they go through and talk about, and it's very, very much in a storytelling perspective, and looks
Okay.
at some people that are hinted at possibly having or being autistic in historical context. It then also looks at the history of the autism diagnosis, although it doesn't actually fully represent that because it doesn't go back to the woman in Russia that was the first one to really identify autistic
Sarkova.
traits. Yes.
Grania,
So it doesn't
Grania
go into
Sarkova.
that. So it starts at Kanner and Asperger's and like it goes into that.
Yeah, okay.
stuff.
Okay.
And then into like Rimland and how we get into the Lobos stuff and the ABA stuff and like yada yada. We go into all of that. Those connections to the early Autism Society as well as the early National Autistic Society and
Didn't Bernard Rimland found that?
Rimland is ASA, I believe, right?
Oh, he founded one of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm rattling it off, and I haven't looked at it in a while, so like I'm
Right.
not going to be able to recall it.
Yeah. Well, so for
Let's do that.
Autism Awareness Month, we did a video a day for that, and so both of us ended up looking up a bunch of stuff about the history and all. Yeah.
And then it goes into the autistic, well, the early autistic rights movement prior to neurodiversity. So we get into, I believe it gets into ANI and Autreat and all of that stuff, then gets into ASAN and that stuff, and takes like a chapter to talk about Leo, who is Shannon Rosa Sanchez from Thinking Person's Guide to Autism. Her son has like a chapter in there as well. So like, it goes through a lot of history, again, whitewashed, but really good history if you look at it historically, but it leaves off things.
Yeah. I'm assuming it also leaves out some of the bad jazz too.
How do you mean bad?
Things that were negative towards the community, like some of the mistreatment of people.
Oh no,
it goes into that.
It goes because it's trying to explain neurodiversity within that historical context. So yes, it goes into it.
Okay.
Well, some of
and a different key came out. To be clear, and a different key came out around the same time, and I really very much feel like it was a counter programming to that book.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was in a different key, if this was the book I'm thinking of, but it talked about Bernard Rimland, and it was talking about institutionalized, like his mother institutionalized him, and then she fought for a long time to get him out after she realized she made a mistake and wanted to spend time like working with him or trying Rimland. Not Rimland, sorry.
David Triplett.
Sorry, Donald Triplett, yeah.
Donald, there you go.
Donald Triplett's mom ended up trying to fight to get him out, but he was being studied by a psychiatrist or something at the place he was institutionalized in, because at that time the understanding about autism was still very much like so one of the doctors there was kind of studying him and made some observations, and that's why he was the first person diagnosed with it. But then eventually his parents got him out, and then he ended up like, he passed away a few years ago, but he ended up like working at a bank. He was a bank manager or something like that. Or
last year?
Not bank manager, but he worked at a bank.
Didn't he die last year?
Yeah. But it talked about some of the stuff that happened like while he was institutionalized. That was stuff I was surprised by when I went from that book. But
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Another book that you might want to look into is the Autism Industrial Complex, which is
Autism Industrial Complex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alicia Broderick. She is a PhD in education. So like is looking at autism as a diagnosis built up on the backs of behavior analysis.
Okay. Wow.
So
all right.
Yeah, that one's a little bit deeper. It's going to be a lot harder to read, and you're going to have like dictionaries.
Yeah. Well, he will.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
I'll be all right. Yeah, if it has to do with the world of psychology, I probably know a bunch of them terms, but not so much. And so I always say I'm an idiot about the world, except for this much of psychology. Yeah, I really have not cared to learn much about much of anything else. I really haven't. Like, people quiz me on American history, and I'm like, oh, that happened? All right, cool. Because
I mean,
that's my window.
So I, as an activist, as an autistic activist and neurodiversity activist, I put
Right.
it in context with like disability rights activism
Yeah.
and like all the things that come with that, which also then means looking at racial justice and
Well, yeah, because they're all tied together.
gender justice, and it all ties together.
Yeah,
so like I definitely have the historical reference for all these things too, because you have to do movement work and connect it all together.
Right. I mean, you have to know where we were and where you want to go with it. Yeah.
Yep.
Me, on the other hand, not so much. I just need to read some psych papers now and again, and that's about it. Yeah. Well, because I work with folks with intellectual disabilities. I run a group home, and so like I try to keep up on medical information, on good evidence-based practices, stuff like that with people. But outside of that, I really don't read a whole bunch of anything else. Yeah, I listen to people jabber on about it, though.
I read this really great book the other day. It's called The Hungry Caterpillar. The best part is the pictures. I like.
Oh, what happens to the hungry caterpillar? I'm so intrigued.
He eats stuff.
Oh my god!
And he.
Why does he eat stuff? Oh, it's in the name, hungry. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, it's a great book. I recommend it. I give it an 8 out of 10.
Nice. And only an 8 out of 10. I don't know if I want to waste my time with that. All right. So anyway.
I heard a psychological analysis of the giving tree the other day.
Why?
Oh, goodness.
Why?
No.
Like,
No.
why?
Because people, so I didn't know, I remember the book from when I was a kid, but it's a kid's book, but apparently a lot of adults have looked back on it and realized that the book is kind of like sexist.
All right.
In some ways, but it's also like
sexist. I think it reinforces not establishing boundaries within relationships.
But I think this person was arguing that it does kind of do that, but at the same time, maybe that's part of the lesson is that you can't always you can't always please everybody. You can't always give the tree gives up a bunch of itself in order to try to make someone else happy.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like a parental, the tree seems to be metaphorically like a parent, right?
Uh-huh.
It's like a parent giving to their child, and the parent is sacrificing a bunch of things, sacrificing themselves and their own well-being to try to make the child happy.
Yeah.
Even though they're hurting themselves in the process. And that's kind of like, that's what I took out of it.
Interesting. I always thought it was more of a love interest.
Really?
Well, hey, it's art. Everybody can interpret it differently, supposedly, I'm told.
It could be that way too, but I would say even if it's a love interest, it's still kind of the same thing. My takeaway would be that like you can't like you
can't give too much of yourself without hurting yourself in the process.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily saying that you shouldn't have those boundaries. I think it's showing that those not having those boundaries can be harmful because at the end the tree is basically given up its entire self and it's just a stump.
Right.
And it hints at in the book that the tree is not actually happy, even though it's saying it's happy.
When was the last time you read this?
Just when they went through this analysis the other day.
Oh, all right.
They went through it page by page.
I was about to say, like, I remember the name of the book, but I don't remember any details.
It was Shel Silverstein.
Yeah, Shel Silverstein.
I did read that book to my children, so like I have reread it as an adult, and it is problematic. As much as I love the story for some reason.
Right.
But like it feels like I very much identify as somebody that's very giving.
Uh-huh.
And so, but like I also maintain my boundaries so that I can keep myself.
Yes.
So
as we all should.
I find the things about what the tree gives away to still be wonderful until there comes that point where the tree gives up too much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's not. Especially in service of somebody that's not grateful for it.
Well, I think as parents, though, like we all have to come to terms with that to a degree, especially from when we're first parents And then as our kids get older, we have to figure out where that cutoff point is, where if I give any more right now, I'm giving too much.
That's why I interpreted it as a parent, because it starts out with the kid as a boy.
Yeah.
And then the book follows the kid from becoming a boy to an adolescent to an adult. And the boy, now a grown man, keeps coming back to the tree, which I looked at as a home or the parents, like the parental figure.
Right.
They're coming back home to see their parents, but it's almost like the child is never really fully expressing their gratitude to the parent for all the things that they're sacrificing and giving them. That's how I interpret it.
Well, I'm going to say again, everybody can interpret art a different way. When I go to the MoMA, the art museum there in New York, I stand around making fun of all of it, and everybody else is like, oh my God, there's so much good work here. And I make fun of the paintings because I'm an a-hole. And everybody can interpret art differently. Just saying.
It's true.
I really did. I went to the MoMA with a buddy of mine, and I was in a weird, semi-manic mode. And I walked into one exhibit and kind of very loudly said, what in the fuck am I doing here? And everybody was like, you're in the exhibit. And I was like, it's a white fucking wall with a TV on a pillar. The fuck is that supposed to mean? And then somebody pointed at the sign. I walked over, started reading it, and went, what? Empty space in my heart? What the hell? Yeah, somebody tried to explain it to me, and I was like, I give up. I'm too stupid for this shit. So I walked around the rest of the MoMA, like looking at paintings, making fun of them. Then again, as a hobby, me and Steve do improv. So like putting me in front of something I'm supposed to appreciate and expecting me to not make fun of it, that's your fault.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Like honestly, it's the same thing with people for me, right? Like, I'm showing my appreciation of you if I'm goofing with you, if I'm making jokes, if I'm throwing quips up in the air.
Goodness.
And when
Can I interrupt and complain about people in therapeutic communities?
Oh yeah, rock and roll. Yeah, rock and roll. Give it
up. Bring that up, and like I've been part of, because of what I do, I insert myself wherever I can. And so that includes in therapeutic spaces. So with therapy providers and not with like clients around, it's just therapy providers. And the way that they will talk about communities where the love language or the way that you express care for each other is through mild
teasing,
yes.
Yeah.
Like,
mild shaming, mild teasing. Yeah. A little bit of shitting on each other.
And how a lot of these practitioners think that is a space that they should help a patient get out of because it's hurting their feelings. I'm like, no, what you need to do is like work with that person to like figure out how they can express that, which is not in the therapeutic way, because that doesn't make sense in a social context.
No, not at all.
And like work with that teenager, like, hey, you're being a jerk right now, instead of, hey, that hurts my feelings. There's a difference between the two. And you have to like be able to say the jerk part in those communities far more than saying you're hurting my feelings.
Yeah. And
like you call out the action, not how you're feeling in those environments.
Yeah. Like honest to God, it's a shift in perspective. Because I know when I was younger, right, I would get really, really hurt when people would say certain things. So I danced ballet as a kid, right? And at some point I got shamed out of even doing it. And then I didn't tell nobody for a bunch of years because I was so ashamed. Oh my God, I'm a dude. I'm dancing ballet. I got shamed out of it, right? We're talking like early 90s, 90, 91, 92 is when I quit. So dudes dancing in ballet was not acceptable at all to pretty much anybody, except for the guys who were doing it, which was very, very, very few. But like, I wouldn't talk about it at all. And I was so ashamed of it. But it was when I was in my early 30s and I was in therapy for the very first time, my therapist said, why did those words hurt you? Because obviously they can't talk about what motivated those kids to make fun of me or whatnot. But what hurt you about it? Well, because they didn't like me anymore. Did you want them to like you? Well, that's valid. No, I didn't. So why does it matter? Did you love it? How do you feel about it? Do you think guys should dance? And she really got me to kind of focus on that side of it, that shift in perspective of like, you know what? It doesn't matter what these people said. It matters what I think about it, how I feel about it. And if somebody wants to shit on it, man, it's just words out loud. My favorite thing is when she would go, words out
You're just
loud.
being a jerk to say that somebody shouldn't enjoy going and dancing and doing the thing that they enjoy doing if it's not hurting anyone.
Right. Like, let them go be assholes. All right. And she would always do, every time I would point out somebody's perception or I didn't understand why somebody was saying a certain thing, she'd always go, basically meaning they're talking into the air, meaning it means nothing. Give them their opinion. You don't need to understand it. Let them just say whatever they're going to say. And you choose how to respond or not respond, which was a completely foreign concept to me. Not responding? What do you mean? I have to say something about everything. No, you don't, Nick. You don't need to say something always. All right. Anyway, moving on.
Have you learned that lesson? Because
I did learn that lesson. Yes.
It seems like you still need to always say something.
No, I just do have a lot of opinions.
You like to say something.
I would like
have to say something.
Yeah. I like to say something often. Don't stifle me.
All right.
Don't
Ballet
oppress
dancer.
me. Come on, white guy, stop oppressing me. Anyway. Okay. So I don't know. Things fall out of my mouth. I don't know. But that's why I start off the episode with, we're not experts at anything.
Well, I mean,
right?
you could be in the Nutcracker. You keep busting my balls.
That's right. I was actually wicked good at dancing in the Nutcracker. And that's not a joke. I actually was in that son of a bitch a couple of times. I used to love doing it. Anyway, but the other side of it too, though, it also taught me how to roast people. It taught me how to make some jokes about some people. I almost said about motherfuckers, and then I stopped myself. And then I said it anyway. So anyway.
Anyway, what?
Sorry, I can't tell if my son is coming in or if I accidentally didn't close the door all the way.
Oh.
Because it just opened slightly. I'm like, that could be a gust of wind, or that could be my kids don't live with me. They live in an apartment across the parking lot.
Oh.
And so entering is not unusual.
Okay. So randomly coming in is okay.
Do they catch you creeping at the window like in the blinds? You're like,
right. So I got a question for you, because I know you now I'm questioning if I know this correctly or not. Did I hear you once say that you live in Texas?
Yes.
Okay. Do you live in northern or southern? Don't name the town, but I'm just wondering.
I will say I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. That is that's north. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Northish. So what is
it's north. It's technically northeast Texas, kind of ish. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's the temperature during the day there right now? Because it's like the middle of summer, so that's what I'm asking.
I think today it's getting to 100 and hold on. We will just ask Google. Hey Google, what's the temperature today?
In Plano today, expect a high of 97 and a low of 79.
So 97 today. So it's actually cooler than normal right now. And I'm very much enjoying it because I can go outside to go to a different building and go back inside.
Oh my God, it's 97 degrees. I'm not stepping outside.
Dang it, Bobby, it's too dang hot.
I know, right?
Where are y'all at?
Oh, we're just outside of Massachusetts. Just outside of Boston. Yeah, we're about 45 minutes south of Boston.
Gotcha. I was up there in May.
Oh, you were? Oh.
Yeah.
If only we had known you then. I don't know.
They have a Mass General has a whole autism department, like an autism. I don't know what you call it. It's like
it's a wing or a department.
No, they have
a floor.
I don't know what the term for it is.
A center.
Yeah, where they diagnose kids and they do research and all that stuff.
All right.
Hold on a second. Daniel, come inside. He's trying to knock now. I'm going to get up and go to the door.
You are
because
older than me. Do you still feel the pain?
What?
Elton John.
Oh.
Daniel. No song.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Hey, grumpy old man strikes again. I had no idea what song
What's a dang Elton John?
I almost said it. All right. I
What's a
almost said it.
god dang yellow brick road? I don't.
All right.
Why would you put a candle in the wind? That just sounds like a recipe for disaster. I tell
Daniel,
you what.
come in.
That's awesome.
I'm doing an interview for a podcast. What's up?
So earlier today, Steven said that you were checking something on my phone.
I still need to do that, but I will do it in a minute.
All right.
Okay.
No,
It's just your rent. It's just your rent. I just need to check it.
all right.
All right.
I've never met a crocodile that could rock.
All right. I don't know how I come back from that one.
What's a god dang rocket man?
That's a good accent. That's a good,
Yeah.
good hang
Yeah.
too.
Oh, he's great. He's great at that. I think he does a pretty good Peter Griffin too.
No, I don't feel like doing it.
Well, then don't do it. I'm
That's
not
right.
saying do it. I'm not
If
saying
you tell me, if you ask me to do it, then I don't want to do it. I have to do it on my own terms.
I didn't ask you. In fact, I really don't want you to do it right
Okay,
now. I
good.
want
Thank
you to
you. I
sit
appreciate
there
it.
and not speak. But no. So we've actually been doing improv together
What's
for
a
about.
god dang tiny dancer?
We've been doing improv together for about 8 years. Yeah, and actually, come next month will be our last show. Yeah. Yeah, no, not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. It's more of just like the three main people who formed the group, me, Steve, and my wife Natalie. We all decided that we have other things that we would rather devote time to at this point in doing improv. She's the executive director of a theater company, a community theater company in Massachusetts area. Me and Steve have this, and me and Steve really don't have the patience, energy, or level of give a shit to do much more than this. So
Do you expect me to know what a Benny or a jet is?
all right. Yeah, you're focused on that, aren't you?
What? Elton John songs?
I think you should do the rest of the interview just as Hank Hill.
Just do Elton John songs?
No, just as Hank Hill the whole time.
What's an autism?
What's an autism?
Bobby, are you on the spectrum? Peggy, I think Bobby is on the spectrum. I told you not to get him a dang vaccine. It's that goddamn Pfizer, I'll tell you what.
Oh God. Oh, that's so good. Okay, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're all laughing pretty strong. Okay,
And
I'm laughing
Everyone
strong.
in between and outside of the.
At least you have a sense of humor.
Yeah. All humans. I apologize. We took a break to laugh.
Sometimes our guests don't have as good of a sense of humor.
That is true. Actually, you have a really good sense of humor.
Especially somebody who works in does
Yeah.
I would consider you a professional. You're somebody.
Yeah.
So, but like sometimes people are very professional.
That's true. Well, especially when it comes to
know how
like
to do that.
advocacy and activism. Some of those folks are pretty intense and lack a sense of humor. You seem to have a pretty good one.
What's a
Goodness.
goddamn stem?
You know what's weird is that I've met them and they have amazing sense of humor, but I don't know if they would show it publicly.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why. Yeah, because we've interviewed some people, and like Steve was just as funny as Steve always is, right? But they were just not at all. But like
Yeah,
oh,
no,
Jesus.
I don't believe in. So I believe professionalism is inherently ableist,
I agree completely, absolutely. I agree.
and so I just don't prescribe myself to that. I do try to keep in mind like people like how the way I may come across may affect people's willingness to engage with the neurodiversity movement.
Yes,
But that's different than professionalism.
right. You're just being
Professionalism is like-
mindful. You
Right.
know, you're being
I've
considerate and
started, like-
mindful of others around you. opposed to professionalism, which seems to try to push people into this little framework, this rigid, boxed framework.
I've tried
that
to
doesn't work for
unmask a lot
anybody.
more, like in the workplace, and I
that
expected
works
people
for
to
you?
react differently, but people have seemed to actually like me just being myself more because they think it's funny. They think I'm amusing.
Yeah. You also work in a company, though, that has an autism group,
Yeah.
right? And
But
you're
they
a part
just-
of that group.
Because I joke around a lot, but when I work in the past, I typically try to be more professional and I don't joke
Oh, yeah.
around.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I've been a lot more silly, and
Yeah.
people are just like, my boss said, because you've been really. He's like, you've made me laugh a lot lately. He's like, you're a really funny dude.
Right.
But I normally hide that part of myself because
Dude, you are a
I mean,
likable, funny human being. And when I worked for you at one point, you were not.
no, because
Um,
as a boss, I felt like I had to be
Right.
professional.
You
so.
you felt like you had to live up to an ideal that we don't fit
You know,
into.
Hank Hill has a
Yeah.
hyperfixation on propane.
and
so-
propane
I'm
accessories.
just gonna tell y'all that nobody fits into it.
No, nobody.
It has nothing
Nobody.
to do with being
Yeah.
autistic. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those like realities of like neurodiversity will save everyone. It's not just autistic people. It will
Oh,
save
yeah.
everyone.
Oh yeah. Well, it's going to open everybody up to the idea that a lot of these social standards and expectations don't work for anyone.
What's a goddamn
No.
Rain Man?
Yeah, not even the people that they're built for do they even fit into them. Like nobody really matches that bullshit, but yet there are some people who want to say, well, this is how you have to be.
I kind of
Why?
came into that same realization when it came to stuff like gender,
Uh-huh.
when I really started to think about like gender roles, gender expectations,
Uh-huh.
and about how like a lot of people identify as non-binary, and I started to think about what that means, and then I kind of came to the conclusion that like nobody really fits neatly into any boxes or gender anyway. Like
Well,
it's all like a
I will say, but no human being that is actualized enough should fit into any label they identify with 100%. Like a true human being is going to be somewhat in certain places, but I don't think that they fit 100% to any
I think that
socially derived identity.
well, because what it means to be masculine or feminine or things like that can be very
Okay.
different depending on the person.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, I agree with you.
So, I'm
What?
sitting here listening to y'all in
Yeah.
non-binary and disagree with y'all.
Oh,
Yeah, go
okay.
for it. Rock and
Because-
roll. Go for it. Like I
because
said, we're not experts.
so I'm bigender. And
I don't know what that means. I'm sorry.
okay, don't worry, I was about to explain.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. I have a tendency to ask the question right before people explain shit. So, but yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So bigender is a non-binary identity.
Uh-huh.
Non-binary is an umbrella term. So
Yeah.
underneath it, you have a lot of different ones. I
Oh.
prefer saying bigender because it gives you the recognition there are two different things going on with me at the same time that do not fit into your narrow construct.
Okay.
In my case, I highly identify as a gay man, a effeminate gay man, and a butch lesbian. This is the defined two categories of people, and both of those are very, very much feminine and masculine, and feminine
Right.
and
In both-
or
at both at the
masculine
same
and feminine.
time.
There's nothing
Yeah.
about this that is not like a tight knit. I feel like both
Yeah.
but
yeah.
in this narrow construct, and that is the word that I find meets my gender presentation or my
Uh-huh.
gender alignment best within general terms that people can
It's like the most
Okay.
accurate word that you have
yeah,
available
yeah.
to you.
So bigender is the term.
yes,
Okay. So
but bigender can be any two genders that you feel at the same
So,
time.
the
And
reason
my
I-
two genders happen to
The
be
reason I
those two.
started to think about
Right,
this is
right.
because like I've never really been traditionally masculine in many ways. Like I've never really like thought that I've never really thought too much about it. It's never like something gender was nothing. It's something I never really cared much about. But at the same time, I also never really fit neatly into other people's expectations.
Right.
I just didn't care about the expectation.
Right.
I was like, whatever. Like I probably did a little bit more when I was younger. Like if people were insulting me or picking on me, but I never like I'm not really like I don't have a lot of stereotypical masculine traits about me.
Right.
I've never really been into certain masculine interests or things like that. So that got me to think about that kind of gender stuff. Is like,
Yeah.
well, where do I like if I were to try to quantify it, where do I even fit? Because I'm like, I'm not really traditionally masculine dude. I'm not.
that's true. That's
I
true.
don't know, but
But not all dudes are masculine dudes.
No.
yeah, I'm just saying like. But I was thinking about it in that term. Like nobody
Yeah.
really fits into rigid boxes when it comes to that stuff, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Well, somebody asked me
I
the other.
will.
Oh,
I will say there is a quantifiable difference between that and a gender identity.
Yeah.
So I
Wait.
take testosterone to align to my gender identity,
okay.
and I have had a significant decrease in my anxiety due to the way that I don't understand why it works, and most people don't, or like they don't.
Right,
I don't
but
think
it
that anyone
does work.
actually understands why it works, but it does
Does
actually work
Okay.
to put me more into. It reduces my social anxiety significantly, which
Yep.
is social dysphoria.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is what we're talking about there. But it really, and it does it pretty quickly. Like, it did it within like a month of me starting taking testosterone.
Yeah.
I didn't believe them that it would happen. And then suddenly,
Right.
like, my anxiety is a lot lower. Why is this happening? And then I'm thinking back, oh, wait, they said this was going to happen. And then it did. It's not like it was
Yeah.
even something I believed them on. I've had anxiety all my life. Why would
Yeah.
it change because I got on that?
Right.
And
Well,
it did.
God, probably pretty close to 20 years ago or so. There was a study I read about. It was an MRI done on trans folk at the time who were pre any testosterone, estrogen, any
Hormones.
hormones, and then
HRT.
post. And
Uh-huh.
once the levels increased to the identified, when estrogen increased in the women who identified as women and testosterone increased in the ones who identified as male, a whole lot of stress characteristics of the body decreased significantly. And there was thought alignment. So certain areas of the brain that lit up more predominantly for females or for males, that person that identified in that way, after starting the hormone, their brain started to light up more similarly to the gender in which they identified with. And I
Now,
thought that was
those-
interesting.
Those studies did over state the
Sure.
amount of difference that they actually saw, and we don't actually. And so I want to put that in perspective because I don't want, because you're not
Yeah.
wrong on the anxiety aspects, but we have to keep in mind that the ways that they use that technology
Uh-huh.
can overstate things that are actually, or that may not be able to be said because we don't have a large enough sample size.
Yeah, there's a lot
And
of there's a lot of
so much
research issues there.
variation in the way that brains work. So like,
Right.
I highly recommend not talking about the things that light up the brain because if they're looking for one specific thing,
Mhm.
we don't know that that's actually
Right, because there's too many variables that could actually affect that.
that.
Yeah, I get that. I just really like the study in the sense of
Yes, yes.
it gives hope
I'm sorry.
in that way.
It
But
does,
there's
but,
there's a lot of flawed research methodologies that exist that people accept, and
Yeah.
and you can have a flawed research methodology and still be published. That's one thing people don't necessarily understand.
Oh yeah.
Like
Like-
you can have a shit ton of bad measures in your research paper, but you can still get it published. You just
Yeah.
got to give it to like 5 or 6 of your buddies and just be like, yeah, you know my work. Make sure.
Oh, I
verify
wasn't
that.
trying to oversimplify the gender thing, by the way. I just
no,
was-
that's quite all right.
it's like when I'm
I-
thinking about this stuff, I try to I always try to put myself in other people's shoes as much as I can, because you really can't. But I try to, if I was this person or if I was this, I try to imagine what it's like to be in certain situations, and
Yeah.
also try to think about myself, because I
Right.
hadn't really thought about that stuff before. I just, growing up,
Right.
I don't question any of that stuff.
Dude, I grew up dancing ballet, man. Most of the people I hung out with were female, and
But I think
at
it's
that,
just
I didn't
that
even identify
when
them
I-
as female.
when I
I
say
just
people don't
identified
fit
them as the
into-
people I
when I-
danced with.
When I say people don't fit into a box, what I just meant is the rigid social constructs of different gender. I don't think people fit. I can still be a man,
yes,
but I don't have to be into sports and be into certain
Right.
things and have all these traditional
Right.
masculine interests and stuff. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Because I don't have any of those typical
Right.
interests or anything like
Right.
that.
Okay, so I got a question. I got to go backward a little bit because I got a question, and it's serious to God. I'm holding on to the whole question in my head, and it's becoming a blinking neon sign in my head, which is you said non-binary umbrella for a bunch of other things, and
Yeah.
you told us bigender is yours. What in the fuck are the rest of them? Because I've never heard that non-binary is an umbrella, and there's
I
bunches
actually
more.
have heard this. 'Cause-
I guarantee
Yeah.
you have.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. So can you tell me a couple of the others that are under the umbrella of non-binary?
Okay, so you're gonna, especially in the autistic community, you're gonna see gender vague.
What? No,
Okay.
don't explain
You
it.
can
Just tell me the
trust
rest
it-
of
You can trust
because
it, gender vague.
yeah. I get the two
Okay.
terms separately. It's just way to putting them together conceptually. What does that look like? I don't know. I'll wait until I find somebody who says that, and then I'll start asking questions.
We also have agender,
Oh,
as
what?
in doesn't identify as having a gender.
Oh,
So opposite of a gender would be not a gender, so agender,
so
because we're going
isn't that
whatever
just
the
what
Latin, I guess,
non-binary is?
No.
no
Non-binary
Oh.
just means you don't identify as like
identified.
as
on the binary,
on the binary
male,
male, female, man, woman
Okay,
type
and
thing.
agender is not having a gender.
Gender.
And
Okay.
NB is
Okay.
just
Which
the
why
umbrella.
I said when you said ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between and
Yeah,
everyone outside,
Yeah, and
because there's in between the two genders and there's outside of the genders. When you're
yeah,
talking about non-binary.
and that's why I corrected myself and said all humans.
There.
Yeah,
I
and
don't identify as human.
Okay.
I identify as a god dang. No, I'm just
You
kidding.
know what? Get off, you know what? Get off my planet. All right.
I identify as a god dang Martian.
Oh my good God. Go
I
home,
just
you
keep
dirty
on looking
Martian.
down at y'all's
Yeah.
Jay and Silent Bob pop figures there because they're just there. And yes.
No,
I'm
it's
loving
actually done purposely because he doesn't talk as much as I do. But when he talks, it's kind of smartsy, and I talk way too damn much, and I really don't make sense half the time.
I caught on to that.
Oh, good. No, actually, the last episode we recorded was the first one that we put those out. All the rest of them, we had a little Hulk Hogan figure until he decided to spout off at the mouth at the RNC. So we got rid of him and put what was that, Dwight from The Office?
I went to Florida not so long ago, and I stopped at his bar, and I grabbed a little bobblehead. But yeah, that was all.
But now we're gonna rock now we're gonna tell people up front. Look, I'm gonna talk a lot and say stupid shit now and again. Steve's gonna chime in every now and again and say something really smart.
No, I don't know if I would say it was smart, but
Well, it'll be something fucking funny. Anyway,
Insightful or fun or something.
Yeah. I mean, and so every so often, I guess I say something insightful, but not very often. I'm just the one who keeps this shit rolling.
what is a non-binary?
So anyway, okay. So give me one more. Give me one more under the umbrella of non-binary.
Demigirl.
What?
Okay.
I'm sorry. Did you say demi girl?
Girl. Yes. So
Okay.
this is somebody that identifies vaguely within the feminine quality, but doesn't necessarily consider them a woman. Themselves a woman.
Okay.
So you can be any sex, and identify as a demigirl. So you can even identify as a demigirl if you were female, and it would still be a
I'm
non-binary.
a demigirl.
Okay.
In the
so no.
world.
Like I think that one is probably the one that I can wrap my head around the easiest. Well, because you're saying somebody who identifies as being effeminate, but not a woman.
I identify as Demi
right?
Lovato.
Did I get that correct?
That's going to be as close as we're going to be able to come to, because I also do not identify that way, so I can't say it from that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, like me neither. I'm just trying to conceptually at least try to understand a little bit. There's no way any one of the three of us are gonna come damn near close to truly, defining that.
I started looking into a lot of this stuff more when I was looking at like the overlap between gender, like not
Yep,
what?
keep going.
Well, being non-binary and like not conforming to gender expectations and autism, because there's a
Yeah.
big overlap with like LGBTQ, gender stuff with autistic people. So like we don't like to, a lot of autistic people don't really like being kind of like forced into, with social expectations. Right. So, I mean, I don't know if that probably doesn't fully explain it, but it's just like, I think that autistic people probably are just like, nope, this is me. That's not that.
Yeah,
like this is what I am.
Like I will say, and this is obviously not diagnostic criteria or even necessarily part
I don't
of
feel the
being
need to
autistic.
conform, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It's just
like,
a
don't
lot
feel
of
the need to try to
autistic people
conform to what
are
other
like,
people
oh, you
expect."
want me to be a certain way? Fuck off. Like not in
Oh,
such
no.
crude terms, but
See?
there's a lot of, and I'm not saying this like diagnostically or anything. I'm just saying a common thread from what I've seen is a lot of autistic people just want to be them. And that's it. They don't necessarily want to be told how to be, but more of learn how to be or how to exist. And that's all anecdotally. That is
do
not,
that.
you
I
know what
can
I'm
see
saying?
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, because I will say, even for the two of us, if you tell us to go do, the first words out of our mouth is nope. Like, it doesn't matter if it's on our best interest or not. It's no, why? Right? Like, that's our first response to just about everything.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that, like, I'm not
I am
saying
so
that
different.
that they
Oh, okay.
I don't think that
Yeah,
necessarily
makes sense.
that autistic people are. I don't know, because I don't know if autistic people are inherently like more LGBTQ just because they're autistic. I think that maybe they're more likely to just not give a shit to
Right.
conforming to societal expectations.
So
That's quite
there is a
possible.
new study that came out earlier this year that really looked at this a little bit more in depth, and it doesn't really seem like there's a higher likelihood or higher chance. It seems like it's just more vocal.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
They're just like, it's more like, because a lot of us are kind of reject social norms in general. We're just like, they feel less pressured to try to conform or
Right.
fit in,
Right.
because you're already like, I don't know,
Yeah.
because of all
Well,
the,
I mean, anecdotally, a lot of us have tendency to say, well, what does that mean anyway?
to go along with
like,
what everyone else is doing. It's
every
like,
time-
well, if that doesn't work for me,
Yeah. I mean, every time we talk to somebody who's autistic, my good sir, all we get on a regular basis is like, what does that mean anyway? And all three of us sit around going, I know, right? It took us a while to catch on to it, what that actually meant. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I could be wrong about that. Maybe
yeah, we could very
maybe there's
well be.
maybe there's a
I'm
link.
fine.
What?
So I think this is probably an ADHD, or maybe not even an ADHD thing. I don't recognize myself in what you're saying
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
because I have always been very happy to comply,
Yeah.
Well, like people please and comply or just comply?
just comply.
Okay, rock and roll. I just wondering.
As long as I don't distrust somebody, I'm just gonna do it because I don't think that I don't like, as long as it doesn't go against my values.
Right.
But my values are not traditional anyways.
Okay.
So
No, like
Um,
me and Steve have trust issues to begin with people. Like I can just outright say that we've got trust issues with people
I
to begin
should
with.
have trust issues. I should
Well,
have
then
trust
I'm
issues.
So what do
really
you
glad
think
you
is the-
don't.
so
Then
what
I'm
do you
glad you don't, because I'm going to assume what that meant.
So what do you think is the I don't want to say cause, but what do you think is like the link between autism and like different gender identities or being LGBTQ? Why it's like why there's a disparity between non-autistic people or non-neurodivergent people?
Honestly, one, I think that there's
Wow.
probably more holistic people that yeah, let's go holistic. I'm gonna use that term.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Instead of anything else. Because I don't want to narrow it down too much. So I think that a lot of people do within that sphere fear that rejection that can come.
Uh-huh.
Whereas if you're already rejected, what fear can you have?
I actually completely understand that, because I automatically assume I will be rejected by people to begin with, so I don't even try to put on a happy smiley face. I just say whatever bullshit comes to
So
mind.
if you're
'cause I feel
questioning
everybody's going to hate me anyway.
if you're questioning your gender identity or
Yeah.
your sexuality or something like that, right? And you're already part of this group, or you're a person who already struggles with being socially accepted,
Right.
you might just be like, well, fuck it. Like or just be
Yeah.
more likely to just kind of explore that, rather than
Right.
if you are somebody who fits in, you maybe feel more social pressure to conform and like, oh, well, I can't just come out and like question my gender identity because then what are people going to think? Or I can't come out as gay because what are people going to think?
Right.
Or you know what I mean? I don't know.
Let me
And there's
also
it's just also that layer of like, if you've been told so long that you can keep on performing in this way and you'll feel that way, and we have all sorts of media that does tell us this,
right.
tells queer people this, that if you
Oh,
just
yeah.
keep on trying, you can conform to
Right.
heteronormativity.
Yeah, which
So there's this
none of
idea
that's true.
of what does comp stand for? Compensatory heterosexuality, that is viewed as something, or is a construct of recognizing that you may not even recognize yourself as queer or trans because you're doing comp het cis because it's what society keeps on just reinforcing that everyone is.
Right.
And maybe you haven't
And
even
so,
thought about it or questioned it.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like it's not even in your scope of view.
Right.
And since you're not rejected, you may feel uncomfortable about things, or you may not be able to reconcile things, but you may be able to dismiss them because you've got a good life or whatever, yada yada.
Right. You're not looking at it from the standpoint of the being rejected. I am accepted. I have things going for me in the right way. Yeah, things don't quite 100% make me feel comfortable, but I've got all this other going
That's
for
true
me.
for anybody.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. All human existence. Yeah. Because if you're already part of the out group, exposing yet another thing the in group would dislike you for, what do you give a shit? You're already in the out group anyway. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now my head just went.
Yeah, there's something that like when I really like months ago when I was talking to you about some of the gender identity stuff,
Yeah.
it's like something I really started to think about because there's something I never really questioned before, and I was like thinking about myself, like, do I feel a certain way? Like, what does that mean? Because I never really thought about it before. I just kind of did what I thought was expected of me, and I think I don't know if I really identify in a different way now than I did before, but I think I thinking through it has made me care less about like trying to appear a certain way. Like I don't care about like trying to fit into that. I'm like, I'll just do whatever I want. And if people think it's like, if people don't like it or they want to make fun of me or they think it's weird or they think it's not masculine, whatever, it doesn't matter. Who cares? That's kind of my conclusion was it's just like, I'm just going to be me. And
you know, when you got to fill out those demographic forms, you know, like for jobs or for like surveys or some other shit like that. I always write human for all of this stuff. Like I'll put my age, but when it says race, human. When it says gender, human. Like I've done that for years and years and years because what the fuck do you give a shit what any of that means for me? And two, when somebody asks me like, God, this shit happens to me on a regular basis, weirdly enough. But like somebody asked me what my race was. Not that you can't stare into my face and tell, but somebody said, you know, what are you race-wise? And I said, human. And they were like, no, stop being funny. What are you? And I was like, honest to God, I feel like I'm fucking human. I don't, you know what I mean? And like, well, no, hold on. Like, I know full well that being white affected a whole bunch of shit, but that doesn't mean I identify that way, right? I don't feel like I belong to that group. But on that, like, I understand that there's social implications to it. I'm not denying any of that. It was just in this. No, I'm not saying like whether I identify as something or not. If the world treats me a certain way, that's a whole different story. But this person like kept pushing the issue on it, and I kept thinking about when somebody does not necessarily present quote unquote gay and they were told, nah, you're not really, are you? It kind of reminded me of that kind of situation. They're trying to pigeonhole me into a certain thing and say, no, this X, right? And it kind of made me think that way. I mean, granted, I've been accused of being cis most of my life and I'm not. So there's that.
Wait, cis or trans or het?
No, het. I meant I'm not het. I'm not hetero. That's what I meant to say.
But
I get fucked up on terms, all right?
He comes across as a very heterosexual male, even though he's
I come across as a heterosexual on a regular basis. I've got cargo pants and sandals, but I wear Hawaiian shirts for Christ's sake. But no, but like I'm not that.
I recognize that I am in an ambiguous space that nobody can tell any of those attributes about me. So
rock and roll.
You're going to be wrong on all of them.
Yeah, that's actually kind of cool.
I mean,
because that's like a quiz game for you. Like, haha, what do you think I am? Like, that's kind of.
I mean,
what the heck is a cisgender?
Yeah.
What about bro gender?
I'm pretty sure that I came across as probably a gay man to y'all. Maybe.
No.
Probably.
No,
something?
The second,
Maybe?
so Oswin, and I'll be honest, because I don't know how not to be. The second I knew your pronouns were they, them, I immediately went, yep, I'm good. I'll let you tell me what you are. Just write that in there.
And then I'm also not white. I'm Choctaw.
Yeah, you're indigenous. That would be your preferred.
I mean, I am Choctaw because I identify with my tribe.
Well, yeah.
Because,
well, I didn't.
Because Native Americans and Indigenous Americans are very vast and
Yeah,
We have very
absolutely.
different cultures. So
A
I identify as
huge-
Choctaw because that is my
Go.
preference.
Wait, isn't that the one in the Tim McGraw song? Oh, there was a back in the 90s, there was a song by Tim McGraw that I think had that word in it, that name.
And
So
so
hey, where in the country are they based out of, or were based out of? I don't know which one you want to say.
okay, so we were originally in Mississippi, and we
Okay.
are one of the 5 civilized nations, which means that we also had some slavery, and we were part of the Trail of Tears that were placed in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
So my great grandmother was like an infant
Yeah.
to 2 years old when they traveled from Mississippi into Oklahoma territory.
Love
So-
American history.
What?
I'm kidding. Sarcasm.
Oh, okay.
I said I love American history.
Well, no,
Yeah,
yeah, this country has done a lot of fucked up shit, but we wouldn't be where we are if we hadn't done fucked up shit along the way. Because we also did good shit along the way. Well, not a lot, but you know, a couple of things. Couple of things were good. In concept, a couple things were
Yeah,
good.
like
In
relocating
concept.
people to Oklahoma. That was great.
I said in concept.
What?
A couple
Um,
of things were good.
I'm just gonna keep doing Hank Hill. What the heck is a Choctaw?
There you
No,
go. There you go.
so
No,
so
I
and
actually
then
asked.
we get in,
What?
we get into all of my identities, and I
Yeah.
don't think that I come off as anything that anybody expects when they look at me.
Yeah,
I've been told I look conservative to people. I'm like, what?
really?
What does that even
Really?
mean?
Look
I
conservative.
mean, I also live in the Dallas area, so like
Is that a
that's not
conservative area?
unsurprising. Well, not Dallas itself, but the outer
Oh.
counties are all very conservative. So like
Oh.
it's not unusual but like because I wear button ups and like that apparently
That-
makes me look conservative, even
Oh.
though I
Oh.
wear
Okay.
lip color too. I
Sure.
don't know.
I don't like. So I let other people tell me who and what they are. Like I honestly do. I try not to ever make an assumption about none of it, and not just because things have changed since I grew up, but literally even when I was a kid, I let other people identify themselves for themselves. I try not to make an assumption about shit.
So I brought it up because you talked about not identifying on forums, and I find
Yeah.
it to be incredibly important for me to identify on forums,
Right.
because if I don't, then I'm contributing to my genocide.
No, and I get that. It's just I like when I originally started not identifying anything on a forum, it was literally I was just being defiant. But
Oh, yeah.
But the more I got older, the more I started to question, like, do I actually
But I
fit into
had
some
that
of these
context.
boxes?
I actually had the
Yeah.
context early on to
Yeah,
know
yeah.
how important it was
Oh,
for me
sure.
to identify who I am. And so like
Yeah.
I love talking about positionality and the way we come about, like the way we think about things. Like
Sure.
the way that I'm going to come about it is so different than how you're going to come about it.
Right.
I just like speaking up on my experience because I know it's not the same as the majority experience,
Sure.
because I've only ever had the awareness of being an other.
Right. Oh, no, I get it. By the way, to this degree, I get it. Not to this degree.
Yeah.
I get it right here. Yeah, no, like I don't think any two people, like regardless of what group they're a part of, I don't think any two people have the same experience or even
Oh, no,
similar
they don't.
enough. You know what I mean? Because there's all these other intersectionalities that come into play, and so no two people have the same confluence of all those things. Did I use that word right?
Exactly.
Can I
Yes.
ask you a question
did.
that might
I
be a
did use
little
that word right?
inappropriate?
All right. What?
Go for it.
Okay.
Wait, am I digging a hole?
No, I'm
Okay, great.
asking an inappropriate question.
Oh, good.
Does it is it annoying to you, or like, so you said you're Choctaw,
Yeah.
right? Do you find it like annoying when you find out like this white person finds out they're like 5% or something like that, and then all of a sudden they get super
Okay,
obsessed with
never
it?
5%. It's never 5%. We will start there.
I'm just
There's
making. I
always
made up a.
one-
No,
I'm making up a random
but
number.
You just throw out a number.
Yes, but we have to recognize that 5% means that you are only 3 generations removed.
Okay, so let's say like one. I mean, like a white person is like 1%, but then they have no cultural context. Like they don't know anything about the history, and all of a sudden they're like start trying to adopt like kind of appropriate some of the culture. To me, it's like cringe. I don't know. I'm just asking what
It is. It's cringe. So it can be cringe. I can also see. Okay, so I want to keep space for the people that will come to me. And I know, and I've had people come to me talking about this from their own perspective of recognizing, especially within that range between 2 and 12%, if they have anything in that range, coming to me with the stories of their Native American great grandmothers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like that identified as white, but they recognize as Native American now that they've gone through this journey, and like the things that they had to erase from their culture and everything. So
Yeah.
I want to keep space for those people.
Of course.
Who-
one of the reasons I
who
asked,
can do a direct lineage, whereas there are other people that can't do that direct lineage, and it's like,
so like
how
I'll
much
tell
of
you,
that was just like great.
my grandmother was from Canada, and she was adopted. And according to my dad's side of the family, she was an orphan who was Mi'kmaq, which is like a tribe from Canada. And my dad, I thought it was cringe because at one point, like, he started learning more about it, and I thought it was weird that he, like, without any sort of information, he just started like trying to, I don't know, kind of getting more into that
This is-
stuff.
Idealization of Native American cultures that people really want to glom onto because it's seen somehow as holier
Or like mysterious and something that's it's kind of like
super spiritual, something to that effect.
Yeah.
it's kind of like how like some white women will like kind of fantasize about not fantasize, but kind of like do the same thing with like healing crystals or yoga, and they're like they kind of appropriate this thing that has, you know,
like Indian
has actual
mysticism.
real cultural roots, and like
Yeah.
we're whitewashing it for
I mean,
reasons.
we're whitewashing it for
But so
capitalism.
what happened with
we're trying to make it more marketable.
What happened with the Mi'kmaq thing was I was told my whole life that my grandmother, and I was like, I don't, whatever. She died when I was really young. I didn't really know her that well.
Wait, are you saying you're part Canadian? Dude, we got to stop doing this podcast.
But so what happened was I did one of those stupid DNA test things years ago for a Christmas gift. I got an ancestry DNA thing, and I don't have any indigenous whatever. I don't have anything in my DNA test that came up like that.
Well,
right?
that's because those are extremely accurate, Stephen. Those are 100%.
I told my dad, I'm like, hey,
time.
look, you're saying that my grandmother, your mom, was supposedly Mi'kmaq, but my DNA test says that I'm European, so
yeah, and that would be accurate for you if she was fully so, because you would have 25% then.
Yeah, exactly. So I tried to tell my dad that, and he was like,
I'm gonna clarify this for anyone that's listening. I am not talking about blood quantum. I am only talking about what it would come up in a DNA test. Sorry.
Also, from what I understand, the way that DNA tests work too is like for people who have like different tribal like ancestry, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but because a lot of the DNA they're using as like they're using to compare it against is from like Central America, like people who are.
That's because most of our tribes will actively discourage us from using DNA tests because a lot of our laws are not based off of blood. They are based off of culture, and then how a individual tribe determines who is a member is different for each tribe. But like all of the U.S. Treaties and laws are built off of the perpetuation of our culture instead of the perpetuation of our blood. Because
so you're saying it's possible my grandmother was Mi'kmaq, but not Mi'kmaq by blood? Like not
what?
No.
What? Yeah, but they're Canadian. They don't count.
Oh, okay, that's true.
So,
but no, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
what I'm saying is
we've got to get those damn Canadian immigrants out.
We risk our status.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
By talking about it in blood amounts, because then we can open it up for people that maybe have blood but aren't cultural.
Yes.
And like all of it is about perpetuating the culture.
Yeah.
I get you.
Within our peoples.
Yeah, which is why, like, I don't know, it seems kind of funny to me when people all of a sudden get interested, especially if they don't have, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
No, I've always found it weird, and like I realized really too late in life, like when I was 30, I'm now 42, that people were doing that, and that's why people were questioning me on like my racial identity. I'm like, My dad's first cousin was the assistant chief of the nation. I promise you, I'm Choctaw.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I can't disassociate my family and where I grew up and like what I did.
Well, also, why do
That is
people
my
care
life.
enough to ask you that kind of question? That's weird. Like, who
Because
cares?
people are assholes. That's why. I'm going to just chalk it up to because people are assholes. Like, that's not a question anybody should ask anybody because who gives a fuck?
What the
Ask
dang
the human
Choctaw?
being in
What's
front of you who the human being in front of you is. And if they want to tell you that, like, their ancestry is X, then great. But who
Like,
the
I
fuck
don't
is
see
anybody to ask that question?
I don't see a dream
Because
catcher.
there's a lot of people that will try to use it to gain clout and status.
Of course.
Usually when I'm bringing it up, I'm like, no. I'm just trying to like conceptualize what's happening. What we're talking
Yeah.
about here is something different
Yeah.
than what
Oh, yeah.
I experienced.
Well, it's-
Hopefully, hopefully I
and
didn't
so
say
on.
anything that offended you, but
I would have told you if you had.
okay.
See? And I'm really happy that I've gone this entire podcast without saying something offensive so far. So bravo to Nick. He gets a participation trophy, which ruined everybody's ability to compete.
I told you it
so
was going to be a
beyond that,
controversial question, but
no, I think it was a good,
I mean,
valid question.
The likeness of you asking me a controversial question that is actually seen as controversial by me is really low.
Well, yeah, because the space you're in, you're talking about serious stuff that affects people in a real way, and it's about open communication. So I can't imagine that we would bring up a quote unquote taboo subject because in the space you're in, I can only imagine you're talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on that note, our time has come close to the end because we had a great interview. I really enjoyed talking with you, Oswin. I think Steve enjoyed talking to you too, but
Yes.
he's Canadian, so he doesn't count. So here's the thing. Ryan Reynolds, I love you, but you're Canadian. Get out. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on our show. Love to have you on another time, especially if there's like a policy thing coming up, because I do believe like Senate or Congress or whatnot is going to be voting relatively soon on something autism bill related or some crap like that. I don't know. But anyway, let's have you on again. Maybe next time we can do a 3-way or a 4-way with Mosh, Clinton, and you.
that sounds like
that would be interesting.
I know.
Mosh and Clinton.
Right. We would have to have like a 4-hour multi-part episode to do.
we'll do
it.
the Brady Bunch, like with the
Exactly. We'll do the Brady Bunch. You know what? I'll stay home and I'll call in from my house, and then
Okay.
we really will have like 5
I'll
boxes.
just put this in front of you in your place.
That's right. That's right. But all right, Oswin, thank you very much, and I will see you at some point on a live on TikTok. I guarantee.
Autism cure
Considering
coming
we
your
got
way.
some same friends. Oh yeah, autism cure on the way.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy. It's a joke he's been using since day one of our podcast about how he's developing a cure for autism.
Yeah, it
with
involves
essential oils and crystals, and you also put minerals in there. I think you said lead at one point. Like using lead. I don't know. It was a running joke.
Oh, can I tell my favorite joke?
I
It's
would
with
love to
my
hear your
daughter.
favorite joke. Yes, right
So
before we end.
So not my favorite joke, but
Oh.
in that line.
Oh,
of
yeah, yeah.
thinking, in that thinking.
Yeah.
So my daughter is my youngest by 9 years. I've got the older two are 19 and 20, and she just turned 10, and she is not autistic. Okay. But I try to do everything right. I got vaccines when I was pregnant with her. I made sure she got all the vaccines from the start. We had several sonograms because she was a high-risk pregnancy, and that's also supposed to increase her risk of autism. I was also older. I was in my 30s. I should have had an autistic daughter. I did everything right.
Did you make sure to put on some Iron Maiden and hold it up to the womb?
Yeah.
Because I heard the heavy metals can cause
Heavy metals.
rock some Judas Priest. You know, like baby Einstein, but baby autism.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. You downed a bottle of Tylenol, I assume. You know.
No.
Apparently,
No. Okay, you stayed away from the Tylenol.
soy apparently another one. So.
Soy,
tofu.
There you go. There you go. And we would like to start perpetuating
Microplastics.
the idea. Oh, microplastics.
That's right.
We would like to start perpetuating the idea that NyQuil can do it.
According to Robert F.
You know, just
Kennedy,
for
it's the
fun.
Wi-Fi. So
Yeah, it's the Wi-Fi.
I swear that McDonald's French fries causes autism. I don't think you can
Yep.
disprove me.
Yeah, there's no way I can. No
it's
way.
chicken
Yeah.
nuggets, obviously. That's why all the autistic
Yeah,
kids love them.
exactly. That's why.
Chicken nuggets cause autism.
Yeah, chicken McNuggets right there. How many other things can we
It's
correlate to this bitch?
smiley French fries.
Oh
the ones
my
in the
God.
shape of a smile.
Every time the moon is full, an autistic baby is born. No. All right. Oswin, thank you very much. And for all people who are listening to this episode, if you made it this far, we appreciate you. And that means you've got the stamina to hit like, follow, and subscribe on any service whatsoever. Follow us on Spotify.
Tell us your favorite Hank Hill quote.
Oh, tell us your favorite Hank Hill episode. I like that one too.
Pocket sand.
But tell your friend, tell your neighbor, tell your lover, tell somebody you don't even know to watch our podcast, listen to our podcast, or if you hate somebody, tell them to listen to our podcast or watch our podcast because we're the best revenge ever. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.